Good afternoon. My name is Steve Ewell, and I'm Executive Director of the CTA Foundation, the charitable foundation affiliated with the Consumer Technology Association. And it's my great honor to be joined here today by Francis West, the Chief Accessibility Officer at IBM. And for those of you that attended the IBM keynote yesterday, you heard the great announcement that the CTA Foundation and IBM are partnering on a cognitive computing project, and so we have the opportunity to talk to Francis a little bit about that. But actually, before we get to that, I'd love to dig into Francis's history, as one of the first chief accessibility officers in our industry. Talk about how you got involved in this space, particularly with a company like IBM, which has such a history in accessibility.
Well, thank you, Steve. First, I'm just really honored to be here. This is my first CES event, and it's just been mind-boggling. So I'm actually a veteran IBMer. I don't want to tell you how many years, but all I can tell you that I'm working on aging initiatives, and I qualify for that, speaking from personal experience. I actually got into the accessibility business somewhat by chance. I've been in IBM sales and marketing all my life, and about 10 years ago there was an opportunity opening up in IBM research, and at the time I actually knew very little about accessibility, but I just thought, well, if the intent of accessibility is to bring technology out to the marketplace to better human experience, how cool is that? So I thought it would probably just be my regular assignment of 2-3 years and move on, but I've been at it for more than a decade and just loving it.
Well, that's great. Talk about the major shift that IBM's currently undergoing as you go from traditionally a B2B business to getting more and more engaged in the cognitive area. Talk about that shift and what IBM's doing in this space.
Sure. IBM, for those of you who are maybe over age 45, will know that this is actually a company that's been in business for 105 years. We are the, probably, I would say the oldest technology company out there. And every, so many years we actually go through transformation, and we are right at the cusp of another major shift. And yesterday at the keynote, our CEO, Ginny Rometty, talked about we're really entering what we call the cognitive era. The cognitive era really speaks to that the technology, it has advanced enough that we believe that the system of the future will not just kind of advise or calculate or assist, but be able to learn and reason. And the whole intent of the whole cognitive computing is to ask the computer learn about the environment, about your personal preferences, and then it begin to help you to make not just management of your activities, but better decision making.
Now let's talk a little bit about this partnership. Now IBM obviously has an incredible amount of work that you've done in cognitive computing. What made IBM interested in contributing to the CTA Foundation, both financially as well as bringing an incredible amount of resources towards the research project, and maybe dig into a little bit about what we'll be doing together?
Okay, so the cognitive computing at the center of this, like I said, is really being able to take technology that leverage the thinking ability, which says that, when you start evolving that kind of technology, it really is a human-centric point of view. Really allowed IBM to go beyond our traditional space, which is business-to-business, kind of a system-based interaction to human interaction. And of course, the consumer electronic industries, you guys are at the forefront of customer experience and human experience. So what we think that is a perfect combination of leveraging your members' experience and also their keen sense of customer interaction, and through technology like mobile and IoTs and all that, gather up the information, then IBM can provide the backbone of analytic to really curate the data, to fine-tune the data, and really add value and insight to the data analytic, so we can bring it down to a much more nuanced level and potentially on an individual level.
So talk to me as someone who's aging, or if I had a disability, how will cognitive computing make a difference to me? Do you have any projections of what we might find in this study, or where do you see this having a direct impact on these audiences?
I think if you have a mother or father who are in their 70s and 80s, and when you talk to them about technology, there is just this normal factor that sets in. So no matter what we think the technology as easy to use from the elderly perspective, there is certain factors both on attitude side and also just on physical ability side one has to get over. I think through the study, what we would like to find out is that are there, quote unquote, some common factors that in designing the experience into whether it's the devices or your solution or a mobile apps that one needs to consider, and that could we codify those experiences so the entire ecosystem from device manufacturer to data curator to mobile app, developers, can we all, have at least some common understanding and common ground in designing the experience so that we really can engage the people with disability and also the aging population.
Well, that's great. Now, as you've had a chance to see a little bit of CES and see the variety of things on the show floor, one of the things we talked about earlier today in another interview was opportunities to work together between a variety of different companies, whether startup companies or large companies like IBM and others that are at the show today. Can you talk a little bit about how being able to develop some of those open partnerships will help with developing more accessible technologies?
Sure. If you look at the history of IBM, we are very much into really, for example, the open platform, the Linux. Some people probably don't even remember Linux anymore, but we were one of the first companies to go out to say, let's have open platform. And the same thing is happening with the cognitive computing. We think that in order for every individual, every consumer, every customer, every citizen to really benefit the technology, we need the entire ecosystem to work together. What IBM is good at is managing large amount of data. We are good in providing, top level of security, privacy to infrastructure. So for example, our cloud-based solution called Bluemix is architected in such a way. And the difference of our now putting a lot of our cognitive capabilities on the cloud, and what we're hoping to see is that we want startup companies, we want young, designers and young developers to come to IBM and retrieve or actually download, for example, some of our cognitive Watson capabilities and see what they can do with it. And in that way, we will build up an ecosystem, and then we will feed the innovation from some of these startup companies, which, for sure will move a lot faster and probably have even a keener sense of the marketplace than, say, a company like IBM. But in return, we can provide the security and the privacy and also some of the accessibility standards and design principles that we've been very good at.
Well, that's great. Well, we are incredibly excited for this project. We're really looking forward to working with you and seeing what comes out, and I know we'll be announcing the results later this year once it's completed. Is there any last items that you'd like to share?
Well, I just want to say that I think CES as an organization, along with your members, and again combining with company like IBM, we really are in the forefront of innovation together, and technology really can afford us to level the playing field and really reduce the digital barrier. And I think it really takes all of us to be very conscious that the technology needs to have a purpose. It's not just simply profit-seeking. Now, that's not to say that accessibility is a charity business or philanthropy business, But we believe that by being very mindful and purposeful about the technology, especially new technology like cognitive, we can work together with our ecosystem partners, and innovation partners, then we really can have the technology to better the society, which I think in the long run is the only, way that we all can sustain. So that will be my hope and my thought that we can really harness all the energy in this room and drive to a better society and better world.
I think you're right. I think there's an amazing opportunity at this time to not only make incredible products that we see here at CES, but also to make things that are really going to improve the way that we all live, particularly as we age, as we experience different types of disabilities. And I think that's important, and that's why having these conversations, I think, are so critical. And so that's why we're looking forward to working with IBM and with other partners throughout the industry on these critical issues. So I'd like to thank you for joining us here today. I'd like to thank all of you in the audience for joining us for this. And if you want more information on the CTA Foundation, you can go to ctafoundation.tech. If they want information on IBM accessibility,
Well, go to ibm.com/able or follow me on Twitter
that's great.
@West34.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us, and that's it.
Thank you.